Hi everyone. I'm Sejal, not the name. Uh, hi. Yes. So yeah, our workshop was around capital allocation mechanisms, and our objective was to understand, which mechanisms are grant operators using, and what is the strategy behind using those mechanisms, and the challenges they're facing, and what are the things that they're interested in seeing. Yeah, my name is wrong there. So anybody's looking at my face and the name, that doesn't match. But I'm Sejal. Yeah. Oh no, that's okay. So yeah. So we started with the introductions, and the common mechanisms that people use are quadratic funding and direct grants. And the reason for that is that is famous, first. Second is that because QF seems to be a mechanism which is really good in rallying the community and also activating a dead community. So which is quite interesting because it feels like the communities which are maybe silent do a QF round, and you will be able to activate the community, right? But the challenge with that is that how do you continue that thing, right, as opposed to just making it a festival, right? So those are the two mechanisms that people use the most. Most of our audience was grant operators, and for direct grants, I think the people shared the reason they use it because they find it complex to use any other mechanism, and direct grants seems to be easy when they know that what are the kind of projects they are looking to fund. So it seems to be go-to mechanism for those. And we had a point of debate or conversation where we, even if we use like one mechanism, like how do we make sure that it doesn't lead to consolidation of like a power position if we use like repeated mechanism, right? So at what time do we look at graduating the project, right? Like when do we know that this project shouldn't be part of this round or mechanism, right? And it has to be both ways, right? It's not just like round operator, but also like grantees. How do we create that knowledge when grantees know that this is the right mechanism or the program for me, right? And same for the round operators, right? When do we know that now this project needs to move out, right? So yeah, those were the things we discussed. And when the project should graduate and at what point do we introduce new mechanism, right? For example, if QF is good to bootstrap certain ideas or projects, and then probably in the spectrum is as we go towards right, then maybe retro. But is there something in the middle? Is there something like can be like a continuous source of, let's say, signaling, which is conviction voting, right? If an ecosystem wants to use that, at what point do we introduce that, right? So it's not about don't use QF and use something else. It's about like how do we build that spectrum where at what points we introduce the new mechanism, right? So that is there. And yeah, so those were the things we discussed. And I would like to say that as Gitcoin moves to a multi-mechanism world, we're super interested in collaborating with ecosystems who want to experiment with new mechanisms. And Kevin is launching a book, I think on July 11th. So once you have the book, you've read the mechanisms, let's definitely talk about that. And yeah, thank you. And if you are also interested in just jamming on mechanisms, please let's chat because I am super passionate about it and I would love to talk to you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And the next workshop was about positive sum ecosystems. And do we have Beth here? Well, we don't have Beth here. So, well, we'll go next and I will try to find her. So, Pluralist Grants Framework. So, either Katarina or Joe, who wants to share the outcomes of your workshop? Katarina.
I'm not Joe. All right. So our workshop was on pluralistic grants frameworks. We actually didn't get to the workshopping part so much, but we still got a lot of good input, so that was cool. We started out kind of discussing what are the problems that we see in DAOs right now as it comes to funding and grants. So some of that would be like the disorganization of decentralization at this point, strategy misalignment, centralizing as a default. So whenever you run into trouble, you kind of centralize as the only way to get out of that. And then having no consistent way to assess value. And that really leads to a pattern with DAOs that you have a spending spree without any regard for anything, and then there's a call for accountability. And then as a result, centralization happens, and then you kind of are stagnant. And our vision is to come up with a robust pluralistic grants framework that kind of solves those problems. So traditionally you have like a central authority on the top, like a DAO or foundation, and they select projects to be funded, and that's kind of it. And as a result, you kind of end up funding your friends, or at least like those people that are close to the central authority have a much better chance of receiving funding. And then you kind of have the next step that's like, for example, somebody hosting a Gitcoin grants round where you have some direct funding, and then you have the authority selecting an allocation program, which then selects the direct the projects to be funded, but you still are not really breaking out of that centralized authority selecting things, basically. So why the big whys of doing pluralistic grants is fair allocation, sound metrics, iterative governance, and pluralism. And we also talked about briefly about the importance of having like decentralized evaluation. So that can really come in at any point of you doing your, like rolling out your grants framework. But at the very minimum, it needs to come in when you're assessing how your programs and projects did. So if you really like the big advantage of I've been talking too much. Pluralist grants frameworks is that you are able to learn so much better. So instead of having like one program that you can assess and then see what worked and what didn't work, you can like apply the same kind of evaluations to 10, 20, hundreds of programs, and then you can select what worked and then iterate on that and scale that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. My brain's a little bit fried, but I hope that summed it up. And who can I pass the mic to?
Thank you. So it was intense workshop, I can see. So we don't have Bev, but we have Teresa. So Teresa will tell us what they discuss on their workshop, Positive Sum Ecosystems. Lots of notes. I can see that.
Thank you. Yeah. So we had a workshop talking about positive sum ecosystems, basically looking at ways we can bring more human-centered design into grants making. We were looking at the framework that Beth had presented earlier, which was the cultural depth. And we also, at the end, kind of created 4 different, or like a quadrant or 4 different aspects of grant making, where we had grant design, community engagement, operational efficiency, and impact measurement. And we're kind of looking at different inefficiencies and trying to kind of place them and see, you know, whether some of these can be intentional, how can we prevent them. But yeah, it was a lot of different kind of things that we noticed that maybe aren't that aligned with the way we want to be making grants, but end up doing it anyways. We were kind of aligned on the fact that, you know, it's this huge like grants machinery almost, and you have hundreds of people applying, you have hundreds of people you're interacting with, but sometimes we forget about the human element. So we're looking at the common like frustration points, how can we tackle them, how can we be more aware, because as Eugene had said earlier, it's about creating that fury of change and making sure that you're being intentional. So we kind of did that 1 hour of like really looking at the human element and making sure we are always thinking about the people we are working with and all that.
That was quick. Thank you. And I think we have a last one, Ramona. Ramona, come up. You have 17 minutes, so please be very descriptive.
I will. It's a good opportunity for me to actually pitch this to everyone. So we had a workshop on DAO 345, or how can we turn the Cayman Islands into a region friend. Not sure how many of you have heard of the Cayman Islands and or are working with the Cayman Islands in the room. Cayman Islands, it's an offshore jurisdiction, which is very, very popular for DAO legal wrappers, because we happen to have this legal innovation, which was done in 2017, a trust without a trustee, which is actually a commercial company. And some smart lawyer thought, there's like, wait a minute, this would be the perfect legal wrapper for a DAO, because it can be ownerless structure. You can set in stone certain provisions, and you can have very bespoke, customized corporate governance. So it looks great. And in addition to that, we're tax-free. So because of that, we grew to over 700, close to 800 foundation companies that are currently incorporated in Cayman Islands. Most of them are crypto projects. But we're also seeing, and I'm there, I'm living in the Cayman Islands, I'm a lawyer, I have the front row seat for that. What we're seeing also, though, is an increase in institutionalization in selling these legal wrappers as packages, and insufficient tying the DAO mechanism, the DAO reality, what's really going on, into the legal mechanisms that we used to protect the DAO participants from unlimited legal liability. These DAO solutions, these legal wrappers, haven't been tested anywhere yet, not just in the Cayman Islands, the foundation company, but like the Swiss Foundation, the Swiss Association, the Wyoming DUNA, the Marshall Islands R&D, DAO LLC. It's not been tested yet. These are all legal concepts that we put together to the best of our knowledge as lawyers, but like we don't know what's going to be. So what is the solution to do this, and how to actually get things done and sort of develop these new models and new legal thinking and better models for DAOs? And one of the solutions is that I thought about is like, wait a minute, Y Combinator has a great model. People are learning all the time. They have this beautiful pipeline. Let's do a DAO incubator in the Cayman Islands and restrict it to region and impact DAOs, low risk models. They're not very attractive to investors. They can't really afford their own stack, but they can do a lot of work to advance the conversation, and they like to collaborate and to advance the conversation and not really competing with each other. So this was the model that was discussed in terms of having this DAO incubator in the Cayman Islands where people could collaborate. For example, I've been working on a decentralized risk management framework. We could test this out. We could build this out. We could have it as a public good. We could export it to other DAOs. Some products could be paying. Some products could be free. And also, like really in terms of collaborating, I think the Cayman Islands, like people do not realize the Cayman Islands is part of the small island network. It does a lot of work in environmental sustainability because it needs to. We have a coral reef barrier problem. We have, with coral that's being bleached, we have climate change problem. We are trying to protect the mangrove forest. We have the National Trust who's doing a lot of things. There would be a friendliness towards the region project in the Cayman Islands because it could be also good PR. And we work with what we have. The idea would be also that a lot of these projects can collaborate, publish research, and then expand and gain audience and gain publicity and gain support, including financial support from bigger projects who will have their own research laboratory. Very friendly. We had quite a few ideas from the audience in terms of how this could work and like what partnerships we could build with other jurisdictions. And the suggestions were to build partnerships with refi projects. Actually, Teresa, I do want to connect about that. And also Pedro. And in terms of how do we build these connections worldwide with DAO projects, with refi projects, so that we support them, we learn from each other, and then we publish this research. We push this research out in events such as these, and then we do have better models, including from the Cayman Islands. Thank you for listening.